every man, every woman, every young person in this congregation, I need you to be a warrior for God. My Bible is open to Matthew chapter 20. Would you join me in yours, please? If you have one of those Bible apps, just go to a New International Version. If you use one of the blue Bibles in the chair in front of you, it's page 697. Last week, I began a new sermon series titled Leadership Lessons of Jesus. And today, I want to focus specifically on the topic, the leader's character. Jesus was the role model of a leader. And in his earthly ministry that lasted just 3.5 years, he was training and tutoring and coaching and mentoring disciples to be able to effect change globally. And he was good at what he did, so much so that here we are, some 2,000 years later, still being impacted by the very people that Jesus trained. Verse 20 tells us, "Then the mother of Zebedee's sons came to Jesus with her sons, and kneeling down, asked a favor of him. 'What is it you want?' he asked. She said, 'Grant that one of these 2 sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom.' 'You don't know what you're asking,' Jesus said to them. 'Can you drink the cup I'm going to drink?' 'We can,' they answered. Jesus said to them, 'You will indeed drink from my cup, but to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared by my Father.'" Verse 24. When the 10 heard about this, they were indignant with the 2 brothers. Jesus called them together and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." If you were charged, and some of you have been, charged to train people, to teach people, to develop leaders, where do you start? Well, certainly you want to focus on competencies, skill set, abilities, making sure they have capacity to be able to effect change in their sphere. Then you want to continue on the leadership training when you deal with commitment to leadership. Are you committed to the task? Are you committed to the goals in front of you? But Jesus, not only did he focus on competencies and commitment to leadership, he focused a lot of what he did in the training of his disciples on character. Character. And character is something that it has to affect your internal traits, your integrity, your ethics, your values, your morality. In fact, I'd like to give you a good definition of the word character. Character is the sum of your features and traits that form the nature of a person. A second definition is the moral or ethical quality to a person. Every one of us has character. Jesus always used trees to describe people. He says, a good tree brings forth good fruit. An evil tree brings forth evil fruit. You know a person by the fruit that they bear, in other words. And so he wasn't talking about perfection. He was talking about character. And so if you have good character, good fruit is born. Bad character, bad fruit's born. I want to spend our remaining time unpacking this issue of the leader's character, but I want to focus specifically on one question, and that is, what are the building blocks of a good character? At least 3 of the main ones. Let's look at a definition, though, of a leader. A leader is someone who can show others the way because he or she has first learned the way. So I show you then that as a leader, our job is to show others the way because we have first learned the way. In essence, then, leadership is influence. And we must then be showing people the way. That's what you're called to do. That's what I'm called to do. That's what we're called to be. And so, as we look at this question, let's go back to the text. These two men, James and John, they were already leaders in the Lord's army. They were apostles. That's a very specialized gift. It is a gift where you train. When a person has that gift, they are in essence, they are emissaries of God, sent by God to do a work in a specific area where nothing has been done before. And so they have to attract people, mold and shape them into leaders. They're foundation builders. So it's essential that these leaders really understand leadership, particularly the character of a leader. James and John, what did these guys do? They were two of the 12 apostles. They come to Jesus in a hidden, clandestine way, secretive way. The other 10 weren't around. They had talked privately among one another, saying, look, I know you have a gift. And John may say to James, I know you have a gift too. Said, look, we need to leverage our gifts and make sure when Jesus come into his rule, when the earth fades away after his death, burial, resurrection, the world comes to an end, and he's sitting in power in heaven, and there's two seats that must be sat upon, one to his right, one to his left. James, you take one of them, I'll take the other. But let's make sure Jesus listens to us. Let's get mom to talk to him. And could you imagine these two adult men, they talk with their mom, say, look, mom, go to Jesus, and he'll respond. He may be more prone to listen to women. When you go there, play it up, dramatize this thing, make a big deal. Mom gets there, she gets on her knees. The scripture says she bows down there. She kneels down in front of him. And then she says, and then he knows the posture is one of a servant requesting something of their master. And so Jesus then responds. He says, what do you want from me? And he says, she says, grant my two sons, one on the left, one on the right, that they may sit on your left or on your right when you come into your kingdom. The nerve of this lady. The nerve of these two men. Jesus says, it's not for me to grant. In other words, I know those seats are empty, but it's not for me to grant. My Father is going to fill those seats. But then this thing became a problem when the 10 found out about it. I don't know why all the problem. They may have said, man, they got to Jesus where we wanted to get to Jesus. I don't know if that was their reasoning, but here's what we must deal with. Jesus recognized John's request, James' request. This pointed to character issues. School's in now. He's about to answer the question, what are the building blocks of a leader's character? Answer number one, your ambition. Your ambition. Ambition is an earnest desire for some type of achievement or distinction, as power, honor, fame, or wealth, and a willingness to strive for its attainment. So ambition, it's not a nasty word, it's not a bad word. In fact, I love the fact that Jesus never scolded these men because they had ambition. In fact, just the opposite. Jesus was letting them know having ambition is not wrong or bad. Verse 26 tells us, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. In other words, nothing wrong, with aspiring or wanting to become great. Nothing wrong for you desiring to be the senior VP on your job. Nothing wrong for you to be wanting to be superintendent of your school district. Nothing wrong in your desiring to be principal of your school. Nothing wrong with you desiring to be manager in your department. Nothing wrong in you desiring to be the top dog. Nothing wrong with that. Ambition is not wrong. What Jesus did point to was motivation, driving their ambition. So the leader's character, you have to deal with your ambition, and more particularly your motivation that is the underpinning of your ambition. And so Jesus is going to correct their ambition in terms of tweaking motivation, adjusting it so their character becomes pure and becomes something that's healthy, particularly befitting a leader. Because a leader now is someone who influences others. And in order for you to be able to be an influencer, you better have character that is so attractional that people want to be influenced by you. Jesus let us know it's not wrong to have ambition. In fact, having no ambition is unhealthy. Surely you must desire something more than what you have. Surely you must desire something more significant than where you are. A lack of ambition demonstrates an irresponsible person. A lack of ambition demonstrates even a sickness, ADD, ambition deficit disorder. You gotta have some ambition. If you don't have it, then this lack of ambition reveals the possibility of fear, the possibility of intimidation by people around you. It looks and may reveal the fact that the lack of ambition, that you're imprisoned to criticism, or something has gotten a hold of you where you're so afraid of what others think and what they say about you. Let me tell you, part of the turf and territory of a leader is criticism. You can't please everybody. I remember the guy and his little boy, he decided to go to the grocery store in the marketplace that Saturday. So he says to his son, he said, come on, son, saddle up the donkey. Let's go into the marketplace. And so the father rode on the donkey while the little boy walked alongside him. Some villagers saw them and they said, look at that wicked man letting his poor little boy walk while he rides the donkey. They felt so bad because of the criticism. On the way home, the boy rode the donkey and the father walked alongside. Some other villagers saw him and said, look at that wicked little boy letting this poor old man walk while he rides the donkey. Next week when they had to go to the grocery, they felt so bad, they both rode the donkey. Some other villagers saw them. They said, look at those wicked people. They're killing the poor animal. On the way back home, they felt so bad about the criticism, they both walked alongside the donkey. Some other villagers saw them. They said, look at those idiots. They have a donkey. They don't even use it. See, you can't please everybody. You have to be able to recognize that the idea of ambition, Jesus was saying to James and John, guys, having ambition is not wrong. You just have to adjust it though, because lack of ambition is equally wrong. Unhealthy ambition is wrong. The drive of James and John was unhealthy. It was opportunistic. It was groping. It was scheming. It was secretive. They were behaving like outsiders, like people that were outside of a relationship with the living God. And so Jesus was saying, look, guys, you want to be a leader, you got to have the character befitting good leaders. Ambition needs to be righted so that your ambition is not where you're stepping on people to achieve, but you're serving people to lead them into brighter futures. And so what Jesus was helping these guys understand is that healthy ambition is when you work within a skill set that reflects who you are. Healthy ambition is when you allow the will of God to hold you in tension so you don't go to the left or the right of the will of God or the motivation that's befitting of the Lord. One of the things I've learned over the years, and I keep it in front of me because I'm a very ambitious person, and if I don't keep my ambition in check, I'm going to be someone that doesn't have a character befitting of a leader in my role. So what I've come across and I've developed over the years is this statement that has helped me to keep everything taut, T-A-U-T, tight, so the reins of my ambition doesn't bring me outside of a healthy zone. Here's what I do. Ambition is healthy when we live facing Jesus. We walk in humility and have a deepening dependence on God. When we live facing Jesus, walk in humility, and have a deepening dependence on God. That's what builds a leader's character, and I want to help encourage you to do the same. You got to realize your goal shouldn't be fame and money. Your goal should be missional, like what Jesus said here in verse 28. He says, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. I came, Jesus said, so I may fulfill my missional objective. Mine was to give my life as a ransom for many. So our objective is not to the fame. It's not the money. It's not the wealth. It's not the high status position. It should be a missional one. I want to be executive VP because I want to have an influence on my company to lead it in a brighter future than where it is today. That's missional. But I want to be executive VP because, look, when I walk down that hallway, people are going to jump back in the office. They're going to listen to me. When I say jump, they jump. If that's your motivation, it's not a good thing. The English poet and journalist Rudyard Kipling said, he advised this group of students, he said, when money, power, and fame are your goals, one day you'll meet a man who did not care for any of those things. Then you'll know how poor you are. And that's exactly what Jesus was saying to these guys in his ways. Ambition outside of the tension of godliness and Christ-likeness and character befitting the integrity of a follower of Jesus is something that leads you to destruction. A leader's character is built by their ambition. May I answer the question yet another way? What builds the leader's character? Answer, your credibility. These guys were about to lose it fast. Credibility speaks about how people trust you. That's credibility. And verse 24 says, when the 10, that is the 10 apostles, heard about this what? The question of James and John, the private question, the groping for that ambition of sitting on the right and left of Jesus in his place of power. The Bible says Jesus called them together, the 10 and the 2, all 12, and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. Let's stop there. So Jesus was trying to safeguard the credibility of James and John, whatever was left. The trust that the team had put into them. Their commitment towards them, their connectedness to them emotionally, relationally. And without credibility, they'd lose all of that very quickly. And so with Jesus said, okay, guys, come on, guys, come on. Guys, let's bring it together. Group huddle here, group huddle. And they all came together. Now Jesus said, look, Gentile leaders lead with a different motivation, different drive, different behavior pattern. They lord it over people, domineer, abusive, autocratic. That's not how we function. Not in our kingdom. And so what Jesus was pointing to the fact that people must respond to you based on trust, based on honor, based on your truthfulness. See, credibility is all about sincerity. Credibility is all about that people know where they stand with you. In fact, the American Management Association in the early 1980s and again in 1991 did a study. They had one question they wanted answered, and they wanted leaders to answer it. So they polled 1,500 leaders nationwide with this question. As a leader, what kind of a leader would you follow? They received all these answers back. There were 225 different characteristics or answers, traits that they came back with. They said this is far too many. They distilled it down into 25 traits because many of them were synonyms. And so they listed all 25. So in the 1980s, 1991, one question posed both eras. As a leader, what kind of a leader would you follow? Would you believe that the number one answer in both eras, early 80s, 1991, the number one answer was this: we will follow a leader who has credibility. I want you to see that when it came to forward-looking, when it came to visionary, when it came to competency, they were not ranked number one. They were down there 4, 5, 6. Number one was credibility. Credibility, the ingredients of it is that you're honest, you are straightforward. I'm not talking about sharp and nasty, mean-spirited, but I'm saying that people understand where they stand with you. They know where they stand, good, bad, or indifferent. In other words, if someone came to you and said, are we okay? Is our relationship right? Because they may have felt a tinge of awkwardness, and you said, everything's good. The moment they left the room, you turn to the other person, man, I hate that person's guts. Every time I see them, I just want to just punch them once, but they're bigger than me, so I don't. I mean, that breaks and smacks of the lack of credibility. Because credibility, it's not just honesty, that's one ingredient. Credibility is that people know where they stand with you. And when people know where they stand with you, it helps the relationship, it helps the dynamics, leader-follower, it helps the team dynamics. It's all the way around. Why? Because trust is there. I want you to know that credibility is all about trust. In fact, Stephen Covey, in his book titled The Speed of Trust, He says, when trust is high in organizations, communication, collaboration, execution, innovation, strategy, engagement, partnering, and relationships with stakeholders are also high. So Covey is helping us understand the value of credibility. Credibility, again, is trust. Do I trust you? If I don't trust you, I'm not going to be able to submit to your leadership. If I don't trust you, I won't follow your guidance. If I don't trust you, I don't feel secure with you. I want you to understand, the idea is that you have to establish this sense of credibility. It's very important. I remember counseling a couple, and the husband had strayed from his wife. He had an affair. And it happens sometimes either spouse. Not bashing men, per se. But in this particular instance, the man had strayed. And when it came to the surface, his wife was deeply hurt, quite obviously. And they had to work through these things. I let them know that an affair does not have to end the marriage. You can work through it. But you have to rebuild trust. It's going to take time. And you have to deal with the poison that caused it. And so fast forward now, 6 months later, the husband's taking the train, coming home from work, from the city into New Jersey, and the train's running late, and his wife freaks out. She thinks he's gone back to this girl, and he's fooling around. And so he's livid. He's saying, come on, the train's late. I said, let me explain to you, brother, you messed up. You messed up when you violated your relationship. There were a lot of lies. There were a lot of deception. There was a lot of withholding information. You know, all three shades of lying. It was all there. And so your wife had to learn how to deal with you when you carry yourself in a way that smacked against a lack of credibility. Now, you have to rebuild trust. What you need to do, if you know your train's going to be late because you're standing Grand Central Station, you know the train's a few minutes late, you get on your cell phone, you send a text, you call your spouse, and you say, sweetheart, train's running late, about 10 minutes behind schedule. I'm going to be home a little bit late. I just want you to know I love you, look forward to seeing you. Boom. And you got to do that for another 6 months. Do it. And do it without her having to say anything. Why? Because you have to rebuild trust and rebuild credibility. Credibility is the underpinning of leadership. You can't influence someone when you lack credibility. I remember these two men, James, or rather not James, but Jake and John. They were brothers. They were wicked guys. They lived in this community. They'd beat up people. They'd get into fist fights. They would steal from the store. And one day, Jake was killed in a gun shootout. And people were saying, served him right. But John loved his brother Jake. He wanted to give him a nice Christian funeral. In fact, he wanted the minister who was going to eulogize Jake to say that Jake was a saint. And he said, oh, I'm going to sweeten the pot. I'm going to give you $100,000 if you say Jake is a saint. He went to the Baptist church. Baptist minister said, no way, I'll lose my ministry. They went to the Presbyterian church. No way, I'll lose credibility. They went, all of a sudden, they came to the non-denominational church, and they were in a building fund. And so the pastor said, sure, I'll say it. And so the day came when they're going to eulogize Jake. The place was teeming with people because they wanted to see how Pastor Smith was going to lose his ministry. And John is looking at him. He's giving that mean face, that grimacing look, saying, you better say Jake was a saint or else no money and maybe something else may happen. So Pastor Smith was in his sermon, and he's talking about heaven and hell and the relationship that we need to have with God. And then John's giving that look, and then he says, folks, let's be plain here. Let's be plain. We all know about Jake and John. These two brothers are very wicked men. But I want you to know that in comparison to John, Jake was a saint. They had to pay him his money, and he had to then put it in the building fund. But he kept and maintained credibility. I want you to see credibility is the stuff of leadership. It's the backbone to character. You must see how vitally important it is. And so when we think about it, I have to always reiterate, the level of our character is so important. God cannot raise you up beyond the level of your character. Your character's the ceiling. It's the ceiling. If you don't believe me, open up the newspaper. Every day you'll find there's either a politician, some businessman or businesswoman or some religious leader or someone in rank and file or someone in sports, you'll see them, they're crashing and burning. Why? It wasn't their competency. It wasn't even their commitment to leadership that came to their demise. It was their character that dethroned them from the place of being that superstar or being on the top of the heap pile. I want you to see, God cannot raise us up beyond the level of our character. Don't you ignore the value of character. It is the backbone to leadership that lasts. It's the backbone to leadership that lasts. I don't know about you, but I want to finish well. When I think about my leadership role, I don't want to just have wonderful experience for 30 years. I want to finish well. I want to go to my grave with a smile on my face, knowing that I ran my course, I finished the race, and I had it with clean hands and clean heart. That's my heart, and that's my desire. Someone once asked me, they said, Pastor David, tell me, why does your church attract so many men? And I said, a number of reasons. One reason is that we've prayed for men to come in over the years, and we've kept that as a focal point. Second, we don't make the church effeminate. We don't feminize it with the colors. And third, we have men in leadership in different places. They're visible. But I said another reason that may be overlooked is that I create an environment where there's not a man in this room or in our ministry that feels that their relationship with their wife or with their daughter is insecure because of how I carry myself. So they'll never think that I'm going to behave in a way where I'm trying to win over the affection of their wife or their daughters because of how I carry myself loosely, if I carry myself loosely as a man. So you don't see that. And I'm saying that as a reason because there must be things woven. I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. I'm saying there's things you got to do. Some people carry themselves, they're blowing kisses to people, all kinds of stuff. That they don't realize that men are turned off from things like that, but women are turned on to things like that. But if you carry yourself in a way that jeopardizes or calls them to question your credibility, it frays and weakens your leadership. And I'm saying to you that when we answer the question, what are the building blocks to a leader's character? Your ambition is one, and your credibility is another. And if you've been lacking credibility on your job, stop what's going on. Meet with various coworkers and say, are we okay? And then you may say, well, I felt as if I've mishandled you or I've not done the right thing towards you. And I remember the day when I had to say that to one of my own leaders. I said, I think I've mishandled you. I've put too much pressure on you. I expected something from you that I expected from myself, and I didn't realize we have two different measures and capacity. And I want to ask for your forgiveness because I mishandled you. And I said that with tears. Because later on I realized that I wanted too much from him. Because it takes me 2 weeks to write a book, and I want his stuff. Here's my stuff. Where's my stuff? And in my my desire to get things done, I'm expecting him to run at my pace. And we have two different paces. One's not better than the other, they're just different. And when we understand our measure and not to put an expectation on people that are beyond their capacities, like asking someone who is in the 5th grade to give you grad school work, it won't happen. And we have to understand that. And if that's happened on your job, or in your home, and your children are acting out towards you because they don't know how to deal with the dissatisfaction they felt in your leadership towards them, and as a child they don't know how to process it, don't just wash over it and glass over it and gloss over it rather and think that everything's okay. It's not okay. They're a casualty to a leadership style that's been broken. And when you admit that to them, it is amazing the impact, the positive impact of your admittance to those things. So one of the greatest things you can do is to show your humanity and your brokenness. And you'll find that they'll have a greater respect and regard for you. I want you to understand that so that as you grow as a leader, My heart's desire for you is that the sky becomes the limits, that you fulfill your potential and your capacity before the Lord in every area of your life, not just your home or your church life, but in the community, on your job, in the school, in every area where the Lord may take you. I want you to be able to have that stalwart kind of leadership that you're willing to say, you know something, I messed up. And so I'm answering the question, what builds a leader's character? What are the building blocks to the leader's character? One is your ambition. Two is your credibility. But the third is equally important, your role models. Verse 24, Jesus brought the conversation to this screeching halt when he said to these guys, he says that when the 10 heard about this, they were indignant, they were angry, upset, shocked with the two brothers. Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. And then Jesus personalizes this. He says, just as the Son of Man, referring to himself, did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So Jesus is saying, look, you know what builds your character? It's your role models. Who do you look at? Who do you admire? Who do you exalt? Who do you look at in a way that says, I'd like to be like that person, or I'd like to be at that particular position, or I'd like to be at that station, but I'd like to function like that guy or that gal. And so Jesus saying to his apostles, he said, guys, that shouldn't be your model because their character is not reflective of one that helps human dignity. They are squashing people. They are autocratic. They are domineering. They're dictatorial. They look down upon people. And so, the crazy thing about us human beings is that we tend to admire people that are afar, and we tend to not value as much the people close to us. And that's why I always tell people, I said, people that are far from you, they impress you, but people who are close to you, they impact you. Don't let people that are far away have the illusion that they're the ones impacting you. You may never meet those individuals. You may never rub shoulders with them. And so I want you to see, it's not the ones who impress us because we see them in Hollywood or we see that they're superstars on the ball field and we're impressed by them. But that's one thing. But I want to be impacted. I don't want to be impressed. And when you're impacted, you get closer to people. And yes, you'll see the cracks and the fissures in their armor and the chinks and the dents and those kinds of things. But that's okay. That's okay. And I want you to see Jesus was telling these guys, let me be your role model, one of them, not the bad examples. Charles Barkley, the NBA superstar, former NBA, retired NBA superstar, he said, I'm not a role model. Just because I dunk a basketball doesn't mean I should raise your kids. And Charles Barkley is absolutely right. That reflects integrity, his admittance to that. His acknowledging that reflects credibility. When we're looking at basketball players and we're thinking that they're role models, and I'm not saying that some of them are, but others are not, but he's saying, look, because I can dunk a ball doesn't qualify me as a role model. There are other criteria that we must look at to be able to qualify. And Jesus said to his guys, he says, verse 28, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. In other words, I don't want to have a diminished view in your eyes just because I'm close to you. Use me as a role model. Use me as someone that you can aspire towards. And so I want us to see good role models allow you to see their flaws. They don't walk around perfect. No one's perfect. I love what Susan Weiss Bauer, B-A-U-E-R, said in her book, The Art of the Public Grovel. Excellent book that looked at public figures that messed up morally, ethically, scandals happened, but then how some of them were able to survive it and what they did, and how others didn't survive it. And so Susan Bauer said, a leader's admission to wrongdoing shows that, as a leader, he had no intrinsic inborn superiority, but was simply a sinner among sinners, a man struggling and sometimes failing to fight against wrongdoing. It placed him on the right side of a holy war against evil. It granted power to the listeners by acknowledging their right to judge their leader and allowing them the chance to take part in the cleansing ritual of forgiveness. Do you understand that? What she's saying, that the ones who survived the scandal are the ones who said, I was wrong. I have faults. I failed. I'm guilty of having hands that are unclean, soiled. And when they admitted that, and then they say, I ask for your forgiveness, the people automatically, they connected with them emotionally, spiritually, relationally, and were able to say, you know, that guy's just like me. That gal's just like me. And they're able to then tee up again and reconnect with that individual. Why? Because they admitted to their weaknesses. You know what character does? What Jesus was saying to these guys? Guys, your role models, the ones you choose as role models, look at their character. And here's one of the best ways you see character. Character is how you treat those who can do nothing for you. It's how you treat the little ones. It's how you treat the ones that make less money. They are marginalized. They are people that others don't aspire towards. They think nothing good will come of them. I want to see how you treat those people. That to me is a reflection of your character. And that's what Jesus was teaching these guys. Don't be like these Gentile leaders that are autocratic and they're walking around as if they're all that. Don't be like that. Jesus taught them, live the way you see me live. Positionally, I'm focusing on my mission. I've come to serve people. I've come to serve the intent of God. Don't get caught up with all the fanfare and the titles and all that stuff. Let those things be, that's not your goal. That's not your focal point. Character is going to support you. Character is going to leave you in that position. Character is going to uphold you as a leader. And may I suggest to you, believers in Jesus, you who are also investigating the Christian faith, you want to be a leader and you're called to leadership, whether in the home, on the job, in the school, in the church, in a broader community, wherever your walk takes you, be a leader that has stalwart, godly, exemplary character. Build into it by your ambition being in check. Build into it by your credibility being always upheld and underscored with truthfulness and honesty. Build within it by your role models. In fact, may I ask you this question as I close? What Jesus was saying to these guys is, guys, that's not how we roll in the kingdom. I came, look at me, I'm the Son of Man, God in flesh. But I came to be served, not to serve. May I ask you this question? Who are you in submission to? Who can speak into your life? What role models do you have around you that can call you on the carpet, that can question you? And I know you say, well, my wife can do that, or my husband can do that. No, that's nice, that's good. But that's, you and I both know, wink, wink, that's not the real deal. The real deal is when someone is outside of your family who has a relationship with you that's built on, hey, I can call you into question. I don't like the way you've been handling your wife. I don't like the way you deal with your children. You've been too sharp with them. You've been too unbending and unyielding with them. I don't like the way, I've watched how your motivation's been changing. I watched how your attitude's changed since you got that promotion. You're acting there in a really, really sophisticated, bougie kind of way. Eating like, drinking your drink. You get the picture. We need people in our lives that can call us on the carpet and hold us that way. It's healthy. I want to pray with you today as I taught about the leader's character. Would you stand with me? Calling every man, every woman, every young person in this congregation, I need you to be a warrior for God.